Hello and welcome. Hello and welcome to another live stream. I'm Ryan Ireland from CraftQuest.io, and in this live stream we are going to talk about the Git Tower versus Git Showdown. And this image here is much more dramatic than what I'm actually going to show, but I thought it would be fun to show a great application, which is Tower, versus the command line, and how some of what Tower puts into a nice UI, we can also do just the same, perhaps just as easily, on the command line. So one of the things that you should know about me first is that I am a proponent of first learning how to use Git on the command line. I think it's the best way to go when you're first learning Git, and I think it actually will benefit you into your time using Git because you won't ever be dependent on a single developer's UI choice. And I think that if you know the underlying commands, you can always go from the UI version of Git, whether that's Tower or any other app, to the command line and back and forth, depending on the environment that you're working in. So for that reason, I think it's the best way to go. Otherwise, what I found is, one time I went and taught on site a class of developers about Git version control, and some of them had already used Git, but they were used to using it in inside of an app. So I would teach something, whatever, Git clone or whatever it is. It's probably something more complicated than Git clone. And then they would say, okay, but in my application, I do this, this, and this. How does that map to this? Well, that reverse mapping is actually harder to do than the other way. If you knew the commands first, it's pretty easy to map it to what the UI is doing, to what the application is doing. If you're trying to map it back, then you have a whole structure and environment that you're working in where you assume things are called certain things when those are just nice labels for it in the drop-down menu, but actually what it's called in Git is something completely different. So even though I'm doing a Git Tower versus Git on the command line showdown, this doesn't mean that I'm actually anti-application, nor because I think we should learn Git on the command line first doesn't mean that I'm anti-application. In fact, I own a license to Git Tower. I think it's a really, really nice application, and it's probably something that you might want to pick up if you're on the Mac. I think it's actually also on Windows, if I remember correctly. But or just any application. It doesn't have to be Tower. This is not a paid endorsement or commercial or anything like that. But what I do want to show, though, is going through the Tower application is how those commands translate to the command line, and even down into doing things with Git Flow, which is one of my favorite features of Git Tower is that they have built in a real easy way of working with the Git Flow workflow. Now, there are command line tools that you can use to do that as well that are outside of just pure Git. But I really like the way that they built that up. So I want to look at Tower versus Git on the command line. So let's go ahead and do that. So this is Git Tower. If you've not heard of it before, you can check it out. You can just go to gittower.com. I'll bring that up over here. And a new version just came out that has all sorts of cool stuff in it, but we're not really going to tout features in this per se. I just want to go through the app and then do a side-by-side of command line and then Tower. So git-tower.com. If you want to follow along, you can download. There's a free trial, unlimited functionality free trial, and you can try it out. All right. Or if you're already using Git Tower and you want to see maybe how these things work on the command line, this is a good way to go. So next up, let's go ahead and just start with the basics of how to do this. So this is the Git Tower interface here. You have the repositories here. You also have a cloud option where you can access your cloud projects. I have mine connected to GitLab. You can also connect it to GitHub and I believe Bitbucket as well. But so that's kind of nice. It lets you save all your stuff right inside of the app here. But we're going to start at the repository level. Now, the first thing when you create a new project and you have a remote repository already, you typically need to clone that. And in Tower, it's going to be to clone a Git repository. And that's pretty straightforward. It gives you a remote URL and then where you want to clone it to. Now, in terms of the command line, if we, let me just move this over here, get my command line over here. So actually, let me reverse that. Might be a little bit easier. There we go. So we have Tower on the left and command line on the right. So in the command line, this is a pretty straightforward thing, right? I could go into projects, make a directory called new project, cd into that, and then run git clone, and then pass in a URL to the project. So let's say it is this one here. Let me, let's see. Here we go. Here are my remotes. I don't have any remotes yet. All right, so say we want to clone in a project. Let me go over to my GitLab account. So here's GitLab, and I'm going to just copy the SSH URL for this project, and then we're just going to do git clone, and we're going to clone that right into here, and we're cloning. And I've cloned an empty repository, and that's okay. But if we look at it, you can see we have the .git directory, and we can also run, git remote and see our origin. So that's git clone. So that's probably like, the most basic of all the commands. And honestly, it doesn't really make Git Tower shine all that much. Pretty basic stuff. When you want to create a new repository, that is one, you're not cloning anything, you're just creating a new one. A lot of times we'll do that locally when we are setting up a new project. And in Git Tower, I can do down at the bottom here, I can say add repository or create new local repository. And then it's going to ask me where to put it. And I can create a new folder and call it new local repository, and then create it. And at that point, it's going to do what's called initializing the repository. That basically just means setting up with this .git directory that we have here. Now, in the pure Git world, I can just do, let's see, make directory new. I'll do another new local repo, cd into that, and then that same thing, so we just do make directory, and then the same thing is only just git init, and git init, and then it initializes an empty directory, and the result is exactly the same, which is we have this .git directory here. And if we go into here, cd new local, what is it called? New local repo. That's the one we created with Tower. You can see we have .git here as well. So when we, using the plus button here with create new local repository, I'm starting a new project, then that's how I create that with a .git directory. At this point, this new local repo, it doesn't have any remote, so it's not connected to any remote directory. To do that, we would have to add a remote, And through the Git Tower app, we would do add remote repository, put in the name and the URL like that. So we still need these 2 bits of information. And here we would do git remote add, and we could say like origin and then a location for that. Let's say, let me just find the one I had here, right there. And then it added that, and now I can just say git remote, and I'll just do -v to make it verbose, and you can see that it has, it's a little bit bigger so it doesn't break the line. There we go. So it's got an origin for fetch and an origin for push, which is typical, but we have this for both fetch and push. And that's how we add a remote on the command line. Doing it here, once we have the repository open, we just do plus add remote repository, put in a name. Origin is typical for the default. Paste in that, and you see it says the remote already exists, of course, because I've already added that. But that's how you would do it there. All right, so what else do we have? When we're working and we want to see what changes have been made. So right now I'm in new local repo. We have this little circle button here, this circle arrow called refresh. And when we click that, it actually goes and fetches from the remote repository. So let me go ahead and just quickly, let's see, new local repo. I'm going to touch index.html. And then if I have it here, my working copy, we should be able to see that. I can add it, new index file, commit. And now that I have a remote, I can push that up to the remote right there. So I'll publish that. All right, so now I click this, and this will actually refresh and from the remote and pull down any changes that have been made. So I haven't made any changes. I could go into my GitLab here. So here's my index file right here. So let me, let's say I want to edit this. I'm just going to edit here as if I'm somebody else. And we'll commit our changes. We're working in master, which of course you would not ever want to do. So now we've just made a commit just right on the GitLab site itself, which is fine for now. So now when I refresh, I should get that history down. Let's see. Look at my origin. There we go. I'm going to pull down. All right, so now we pulled it down. If I look at history, now we have 2 commits. Now I thought refresh did that, but I suppose it does not. I thought that did a git pull. What I was going to show is that if I go into another new local repo and I do git, actually I'll just go into new local repo and I do git pull origin and then the name of the branch. And that's going to go out to origin and pull down the changes to the branch. So we're doing a git pull, and then actually it will then attempt to merge those changes into your local copy of the branch. All right, so for creating branches, I'm in my working copy here, and we have this little arrow here for a merge. We have this arrow for rebase. How do I create a new branch? So here's the branches, right? How do I create a new one? I can right-click here, create new branch. What do I get? Oh, I get a spot for a name, so we'll call this develop. And we can create it. Let's check it out. Create branch. There we go. Now we have created the branch develop off of master, and we've also checked it out. So if I do git branch, you can over here you can see we have develop and master. I can do git branch another branch. Actually, I need to do -b another branch. Oopsie, that wouldn't be it. Let me clear that. Git branch another branch. No spaces in branches names. There we go. And then I can check out another branch. And we have switched to the other branch. So what else can we do here? Let's take a look. What is on my list? So we got refresh, merge. I'm going to skip rebase for now since I want to do a whole other video on like what rebase is. So you just saw that refresh happen and now that branch has appeared here. Oh, here's a great one. All right, so one of my favorite things about tools like this are their view of the history. So I go on history, and this isn't such a great repository because the history is small, but let me go onto my CraftQuest site. And I go to history, and you can see here we have this little visual line of the branching and merging that is happening here. And this is one of my favorite things about tools like this is that we can do this or have this kind of visualization of the branching. But we actually can get that right in Git on its own. And now history, first of all, this is another one where like I think that it can be confusing because history in Git Tower is actually a Git log, right? It's showing a log. So let me back out, go into my CraftQuest project. If I run a Git log, all right, there's my history, right? You can see 3D0AFE21 should be the latest commit. Let's see. That's a merge. Somewhere there is that commit, but it's a merge from that. I think this might need to be updated. Let's see. What branch am I in? So we are in develop. So I'm pulling down. All right, so we got a git log. And we are on develop. Should have everything here. And we're not going to stash because we are in the same repository. There we go. All right. So there we go. Now we have our commits here. We are missing some here. I'm not sure why that is. But we'll roll with this for now. So anyway, so we're in history. History is actually an output of git log, although here you can see it says all branches, remote, and tags. Now, when I run a git log from the command line, it actually is going to show only the commits from the current branch. So what I can do in order to get this output here is I want to show git log and then do pretty --pretty equals short. And I'm just going to make this a little bit of a different size. Let's see if that's not, I don't know why it's not working. Git log pretty equals short. So it's giving me short commit messages here. And you can see how they have it kind of like nice and abbreviated here, so it's easy to see. You can see it has medium commit view size and small. So if you switch to small, it's nice and compressed. And on the command line, we just ran pretty short. Oh, I'm sorry, this should be small. Oops, actually short. And then also medium. So medium is another option as well. Now if I want these lines here, which is one of my favorite features of tools like Tower, we can do git log -- graph. And look at that. Right on the command line, we have this nice graph. Now, granted, it's much simpler than what we have over here, but it does give us a view of the branching and the merging and how the life cycle of the project worked. So we can do that right on the command line. We don't need Git Tower to do that. We get that on the command line as well. So the other thing I showed was the commit view size. And they have a medium and small. And on the command line, it is medium and short, passing in pretty short. That's how we do it here in the command line. That way you just get one of these little things right here. Definitely not as compact as this, but it's compact enough, especially if you're having to look through a lot of stuff. And if you go to Git help, and then you look for pretty, Git log . One second. You can see you have some other options here as well for like full diff, source. You can do all sorts of things with your Git log. I have a whole video on CraftQuest that's covering Git log. You can do all sorts of cool stuff. All right, so what else do we have here in this cool Tower app? So another thing we can do in here is, I'll make it a little bigger, we can search for a Git commit message. So if I needed to find a certain commit, like homepage, it searches just the Git messages for homepage, and then you can go to that commit like that and see what changed. That's nice, searching for stuff. It's pretty standard for GUI apps like that, but in Git that comes right with just native Git. We can do git log, because remember we're just searching the history, which is actually the log. Git log grep, and then pass in our search string term like homepage, and we get the same thing. It's also searching the commit messages and outputting them. All right, what's next? How about seeing a diff for a file? So if I go to my working copy, here we have composer.lock has changed. So I'm still in my CraftQuest project because I obviously have a lot more commits in here. Be easier to see. I click on the file and I want to see what's changed. Well, the first thing I would probably do here is do like a git status and see like what's been modified. And then I can do git diff composer.lock, which is going to be the same as clicking on this and getting the diff. And then I have a diff output here. Make this full screen, be easier to see. And we can see what's been removed and added all the way through. And so you can get an idea of what's changed in the project or for this file. So again, this kind of combines status and diff into one view. And if we do git status see if I can get some help information from this. Let's see. We can do verbose, which will give us a diff, I believe. Yeah, so I can do git status verbose. Oh, it does not. Let's see. Verbose, in addition to the names, the textual changes, that are staged. Okay, so we actually would have to stage these then first. So I can do git add composer.lock and then git status verbose or just -v. There we go. So now we're getting the output along with what has changed for staged files. This is actually are not even staged. So it's one kind of a nice advantage that the Tower has in how it's sort of combined this UI. And that's one of the things that a lot of these tools do is like Tower, trying to think of some of the others, but I can't think of, even like, the Git app, as GitHub app, they have their own app, is they'll take sort of these different parts of Git from the command line and they'll condense them into a single view, which gives you, like less typing and lets you kind of consolidate views into one thing. And that's the real power of it. But we don't want to forget how Git works. And so by not doing that, we're much easier to be able to go back and forth between the command line and on the UI, like with Git Tower. So what else do we have here? Let me just do a quick check-in here. All right, show ignored items. So if we go to this little menu here, we can say show ignored items. And you can see we're ignoring like the CPU resources cache directory here. And that's nice because sometimes you want to know what's being ignored. Of course, we could look at our .gitignore file, but we might want to have that view. To do that, we do git status --ignore. Oh, looks like that didn't work. Oh, ignored. Sorry, forgot the D. Let me just go and clear that. So git status --ignored with the D. There we go. And now we get a status output, but it's also listing all of the ignored files. So we get our normal, like, changed but not committed or not staged, untracked, and now we're also getting ignored as well. One thing Tower does is it keeps it all like in line, sort of in order, like this. But this one on the command line, it kind of separates them out. So that's how we do that. All right, so let's say that we want to, let me just see what this is. All right, let's say I've made some changes here, and I want to go and discard local changes. I want to get rid of everything that has changed. So I can click on the file and choose discard local changes. Sometimes we make changes in the wrong branch, or we were just playing around and we just want to go back to how things were from the last version, the tracked version of that file. So to do that, we can do git checkout -- and then the file name, like composer.lock. And that will go back to the last version of the project. There we go. Now you can see this will no longer show up as modified. See that, how it went away? Because it's no longer modified. When we turn off show ignored items, there we go. And I can do the same thing with this file as well. I can say discard local changes. We'll do it from here this time. So Tower gives us, makes us confirm that we want to do this. Here, it's just automatic. And I can say, yep, discard the changes, and there they go. From the command line, it's just git checkout -- and the file. And from here, you can right-click on the file and choose discard local changes from the menu. All right, so those are some of the things that we can do in both in Git Tower and how we do it in the command line. Now, one thing that is for sure is that the command line can feel a lot more complicated, a lot more arduous, and of course you have to remember the commands because they're not kind of sitting around here in buttons in a toolbar or in menus for you where you can kind of hunt for them. You have to really know what you need next. And that's kind of one of the nice things about using an app like Tower. But again, if you learn the commands, at least the basic commands from the command line first, and then go into a application like Tower, then you'll be fine. Because if you ever have to hop on a server and start doing some Git stuff for some reason, you're not going to have Tower there to help you out. So you definitely want to know how to use the commands. So one of my favorite parts about Tower is its support for Git Flow. And it's this little branching icon here and merging icon of different branches. And we have to first enable Git Flow, and we have to configure it. So the production branch is going to be master, development branch will be develop, feature branch, hotfix, release, and we can leave the version tag prefix off, and we say configure. So now Git Tower knows that when we kick off a new feature branch, to prefix it with feature /, when I'm done with the feature, to merge it into develop, and when we're ready to do a release, to merge the feature into master. That's essentially what I just set up. So we can now start the feature. So I want to kind of, the best I can, I want to walk through how this works on the command line and in Tower. And I think on the command line, it's a lot harder on the command line for sure. Now there is a Git Flow library or command line tool that you can download and use or install and use, which is really handy. I have not used it extensively, but what Git Tower offers is so nice. It's actually so impressive. It's really the main reason that I have the app is for this. But I do, again, want to show that Git Flow can work. One of the things that's so great about Git Flow is that it works no matter what. It's not just a feature that needs to have some other stuff. You can use Git Flow in just pure native Git. So that's what we're going to do. So one of the first things about Git Flow is, of course, you need to initialize it, which we just did. And on the command line with pure Git, we wouldn't do any of that, because we would just know that we're calling our feature branches feature /, our hotfix is hotfix /, our release is release /, develop is our develop branch, and master is our production branch. So we would know how to do that. All right. So let's say we want to start a new feature. In Tower, I would do start new feature, and it would ask me for the feature name and the starting point. So feature name, starting point. Here, I would run git checkout -b feature / my new feature, and then the starting point develop. So what am I doing here? Git checkout -b, this is what I was hunting for earlier, is to say create this branch and then check it out, and we're creating it based on develop. So when we do that, we're going to be in the new branch feature, my new feature, based on develop, because the Git Flow workflow is where you're always branching off of the develop branch to start a new feature, because develop and master are essentially almost always in sync. So we have our new feature branch. So we are in a, you can see now we have here in Tower, it's given us a branch folder with our new feature branch, and it's set as head, which means we've checked it out, which of course we just did because I know we typed that command. Again, another benefit of using the command line is that you know what you're doing because you are explicitly typing the commands, and there's no real magic happening underneath. I mean, except for like porcelain versus plumbing commands, but that's a whole other topic. So we are now, we have our new feature branch, and we are going to make a change. So let's say we are going to open up our, I'm just going to open up the .env file and change the database, just kind of being silly here, to CraftQuest 2. So we save that, and if I run git status, I have a change. Oh, .env is ignored, so that one won't work. Let's actually just create a new file. Actually, we'll just edit something in here. All right, so we have our new file. Now if I run git status, you can see we have our test file. We're going to do git add test.txt, git commit -m, a new test file. All right, so that's my new feature. Kind of silly, but it is what it is. Run git log, and we can see it there. So my feature is complete, and in Git Tower, I would do finish feature, and that would then take my feature branch and merge it into develop. All right? So in Git itself, in the command line, when we finalize the feature, we do git checkout develop, because we want to get the develop branch, and we say git merge no fast forward, because we want that merge commit to mark it. And we're merging the feature, my new feature, into our develop branch. And that's how we mark the closing of a feature. And then after that, we'll delete the feature branch. So do that. So we're merging in, no fast forward. It's doing a merge commit. I'm just going to do Shift ZZ to finish it off. And excuse me. And there we go. If I go back over to Tower, so that's going to refresh. You can see develop now has that merge. This is the commit that I made in the feature branch. And then here you can see where it bends over. Back in here, that's the merge commit, which in Git Flow you always want to have. And then the other thing that Git Tower will do for you is it will delete the feature branch. So we can say git branch -d for delete my new feature. And then we deleted it. We don't need it anymore because the history is intact in our develop branch. You can see there it went. And there we go. So that's how we create a feature and then finish it. And we're merge it into develop and delete the branch. So here if I start a feature, we'll say my other feature off of develop. All right, we're not going to stash our changes right now. So it's working. There it is, my other feature. It checked it out for me. Now I can go into here, and I can say vim other.txt. We'll just edit this really quick so we have a change. And now I have my change. So if I go into my working copy, you can see here it is right here. Going to stage that, say other file, commit. All right, so now I'm done with my branch here. There's my commit. I'm done with my feature, so I go to finish feature. Notice we can start multiple features at once because on the command line we can create multiple feature branches. Finish, this is my feature branch. Under options, I can say always create merge commit. That is that -- no ff. Preserve merge commits, use rebase instead of merge. I'll get into rebase in another video coming up. Finish feature. I'm not going to stash. There's some uncommitted changes there. So working copy, you can see it removed the feature branch, merged it into develop. There's the commit from the branch, and here is the merge commit. So same thing as here last time. There's the commit, there's the merge commit. Exactly the same, no matter whether we do it on the command line or do it here in Tower. So now we are ready to maybe create a release. You know, our change is good. We're ready to go. We're ready to release it. In Tower, we say start release. We'll skip hotfix for now. But in Tower, we'll say start release. And it'll ask us to create a release name and a starting point. All right, so let me do it on the command line first. So to create a release branch on the command line to start a release, we say git checkout -b release / we'll say 1. You know, if you do version numbers, you could do that, or if it's like, you know, holiday 2018. If you know, however you do your release names, some people release it with version numbers, some people don't. We could do like 1.1.1, something like that. And then the branch we're going to base that off of, which is develop. Because remember, develop has all of our latest changes because we've been merging our feature branches into develop. So it just switched to a new branch. It created and then switched to a new branch called released 1.1.1. At this point, I could do some like release readying things, maybe updating metadata, config files, whatever I need to do to get ready for a release. It's okay here to do a few commits. And then after that, I'm going to push my release branch up to the remote and then go ahead and now get it ready to go into master. So what do we do there? So we do, let's get rid of that. So we say git checkout master, git merge, no fast forward, release 1.1.1. So we're merging the release branch into the master branch. All right, and then we're going to do git tag 1.1.1. We're going to create a tag. Oops. There we go. Message. All right, so we tagged it. Now git checkout develop. And we actually have to merge our feature branch our release branch into develop, because develop and master always need to be synced up. So git merge no fast forward release 1.1.1. And it looks like it already has that in there, which is fine because we didn't make any changes. And then git branch -d release /1.1.1. And now we deleted it, and we would now deploy master out to our server, and we've now cut a release. Now, git tag. If we look at git tag, you can see we have tagged that release, so we could go back to it. We've created a snapshot in time if we needed it. And looking over here, you can see here is the tag as well. So in the Tower application, I think this is a much nicer setup. So if I say, let's say start a feature, my cool feature, and we can go into here and do vim cool.txt. Right, and then we've made an edit, and so if I go here, I've got that. Say cool feature. So I'm making my change for the feature. So the feature is done. Here's our branch. It's head, so we have it checked out. I can say finish. I'm going to finish my feature. And it's going to go ahead and merge that in develop, delete the feature branch. And now I'm going to say start release. Release name, let's do 1.1.2. Starting point develop, start release. It's asking me to stash my local changes, which is fine. So now here's the release branch right here. And next up is go back up here and say finish release. Maybe I have some changes. I can say finish release. Release name 1.1.2. Just say a big release. I can also opt to not tag it, but we'll tag it, finish it. It's going to merge into master. Okay, it looks like I have some diverging happening because I've been doing a lot here locally without pushing up. That's fine. We can ignore it. But anyway, so it'll merge it into master. I don't want to hose my remote branch too much here. I'm going to trash everything I've been working on locally. So we want to, it'll merge into master and then delete the release branch, and then we can deploy the release branch, the master branch out to our production server. So those are how you do these things both on the command line and in the Tower application. I really enjoy doing it both ways. I feel like if I need to do something quick and fast, the command line is much faster for me. If I need to do something a little bit more involved, like Git Flow, then I really do enjoy using the Tower application. It's great for getting an overview of things. If I make this full screen here, you can see that it's nice to see like what's going on with the whole system. Look at the history of everything. I was going to check out develop again. Looking at the history of everything, you can see what's happening. You can check on your stashes. It gives you a nice view of your stashes. But again, even git stash is easy to show and see what's in there as well. It's not too difficult. You see it's the same exact thing here. And we can do git stash list, and it'll show you any stashes, which is just this one here. The pull request option, obviously that's software that's built into Tower that operates or works with pull request features and things like GitHub. So we're not going to really do that in the command line. Although if you use GitLab like I do and you do a git push, GitLab is part of the message that it sends back to the command line when you have done a successful push. It'll give you the URL that you can then go to kick off a what they call a merge request. And I'm using iTerm here. Then on iTerm, I can just command click on the URL in order to open the browser, and right from there I can create a merge request. So we have kind of some of that built in there. So that is how we do things here. That is the showdown here. Let me find my cool message. Let me go to, there we go. All right. So this is the Git and the Git Tower and the Git command line showdown. It's just a little bit of a side-by-side of what we have available to us in both Tower, which is a great app, and also in the command line. And actually, you can use them both side by side. I do encourage you, if you haven't already learned Git from the command line, it's totally worth it. If you stick with the simple commands like git init, git add, git commit, git push pull, the real simple stuff, and then get into merging, I think it will help you because Git is, it just kind of builds on itself. It's a modular system where you start to put all the pieces together to create different workflows like the Git Flow workflow. And if you think about it that way, then I hope that you can get more into the command line, but also still use the GUI tool if you want, but just don't rely on that solely, because sometimes some of the giddiness of Git is abstracted away when we get into the UI, the GUI tools. So I encourage you to check out both command line. I have some courses on CraftQuest, craftquest.io on Git version control if you want to check that out. And this live stream will be up there as well. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys on the next live stream. We're about to hit an hour, so it's time to sign off. I'll talk to you on the next one.